I'm Alicia.
And I'm Maddie.
And welcome to the Fangirl Diaries, a podcast where we talk about our obsessions,
Reminisce about our teen icons,
and explore the books, movies, and shows that made us the incredibly nerdy 30-somethings that we now are. Hello, Maddie.
Hey, Alicia.
We're back, and we are back with the second part of one of our favourite topics of all time. We are carrying on our Christmassy Harry Potter discussion with Goblet of Fire and Order of the Phoenix.
Yes, we are. And I mean, it's funny you say Christmassy. It's still November, but yeah, you're right. Harry Potter does always have like a Christmas feel and like a wintry feel in that like Hogwarts way. It's nice.
It is Christmassy, and I don't know why. Why is it Christmassy? Like the whole thing goes through the entire academic year. All the big drama normally happens in the summer, but it feels Christmassy.
I think that comes from the movies, which we're going to talk about today, definitely. They've definitely got a wintry vibe, witchy vibe.
Yeah, we didn't speak about the films last time because we were just chatting before and you mentioned the movies start to be released as book 4 and 5 come out. So in terms of chronology, we're right to actually talk about book 4 and 5 and their release with the start of the films appearing.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, Goblet of Fire came out in 2000, and that was for me definitely the first time that you like felt the real obsession, like the ordering it in advance from Waterstones and like going to pick it up on the day. And it wasn't quite at the hype levels yet of 5, 6, 7, but I think this was the start. This was the real start.
Yeah, that was when it started to be on things like, I feel like I specifically remember like a news round episode, like with Lizzo outside the book.
Oh, yes, Lizzo.
Lizzo was such a Harry Potter fan. But this was when, they started interviewing kind of 9-year-olds queued up outside W.H. Smith's or something, getting ready for their copy of the book.
Yeah, for sure. And also when we did get it, it's like 3 times the size of the previous books. Suddenly we were picking up this like massive epic fantasy novel, and we'd never had that before. Before they were like children's book sized.
Yep, the shift from Azkaban to Goblet of Fire is the big shift into right now. The amount of pages, the amount of subplots, the amount of characters, the amount of scope that these books suddenly had to start to bring in. And I mean, this is really the huge shift, like other themes, notably like a more romantic aspect to the books, like really speaks to why they're sort of in the 700-page kind of realm rather than what they were before.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say that the Goblet of Fire is my favourite and has continued to be my favourite of the whole series. I don't think it ever got surpassed past number 4, as much as I love all of the other ones as well. Number 4 is my favourite, and I think it's like the best like structured and well-written story. And I just love it. It's my favourite one.
So why, apart from the fact that it's well structured, like what specifically is it about Goblet of Fire? Because people's Harry Potter personal preference really differs. Like, why is it that one for you?
Yeah, I think I always, growing up, loved stories that had like a mystery with clues and like a structure, and like the tournament is this like perfect that we've talked about before when we've like talked about why we love the Hunger Games, or we love things with like where you've got like training and things. The Triwizard Tournament is like this perfect scenario for me where throughout the book, although there's lots of different things going on, you've got like the 3 different challenges and each one has different clues that you have to solve, and you get to go on a bit of a mystery journey on each of them, and it's really structured, and like I just love that. I think I also love like now I read a lot of like literal mystery books, like crime mystery books as well, and it's that like digging into and trying to work out what's going on, which you get bits of in the other stories, but this is the one that puts it into like a format, and I love a format.
Yep. And of course the mystery in Goblet of Fire is who put Harry's name in the Goblet of Fire, isn't it?
Yes.
We don't know how that was done.
It's that, but it's also Harry having to solve each of the challenges as well.
Yes.
So there's like extra levels. It's great.
Yeah. This is a complete segue, but do you remember when we were talking about, we did our episode on A Court of Thorns and Roses? And I know you are deeply, deeply cynical of that whole franchise. But you were like, the only bit that remotely made sense was at the end where she's given 3 trials to do, and now it's got some structure.
Yes. I like a plan. I like a game. I like something to solve.
Yeah. I loved the bandwidth of this book. And I loved the expansion of the international wizard community. I really liked that you have the introduction of the other schools and that they've got different personalities. There's the introduction of the comedy that's got from like a more multicultural atmosphere at the school.
Yeah.
One of the things I was praising the Harry Potter series for in our last episode was it being able to tap into those things that feel really exciting or indeed are real sources of conflict as a young teenager. And this book just gives us loads more of those. Like, I remember thinking it was so exhilarating when they go to the Quidditch World Cup.
Yes, the Quidditch World Cup's great. What a great start to the book.
Such a great start. But it's not only like that it's a sporting tournament, it's things like they all get to stay in tents. It actually has a bit of like a festival vibe to it.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking that's the kind of thing you think is cool if you're like 14, which is the age.
Yeah. And it really expands the world. Like you talked about the international schools. Like we didn't know before this, basically, whether there were other wizarding schools or, and we talked last time about the world building. And this book like ramps up that world building massively, both in the Quidditch World Cup, where you see all these different families coming from different types of jobs and lives and backgrounds. We see the Death Eaters like in person for the first time, which is like terrifying. It really builds on the mythos of like what that whole world is, and all the different international schools. Suddenly the wizarding world feels bigger than it did in the kind of more kiddie books of 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah. It also plays with the structure a bit. Isn't Goblet of Fire the one that opens with Harry's dream about Nagini attacking the old man? And you start to realize that it's the build up to Voldemort taking physical form, which he does at the end of the book.
Yeah.
But it's Harry really starting to connect through his scar and through dream visions with Voldemort, which is like a level of artistry in the book where you think this has been stepped up.
Yeah, for sure.
And normally we open with Harry and the Dursleys, but this felt a little bit more artistically challenging, and I really remember liking that.
Yeah, it's definitely darker and more political. And I'd say if we're talking about the political side of it, yeah, the Death Eaters coming in. But then in the 5th one, when we talk about that, I think that's where we really see politics as a concept being explored, which is crazy.
For sure. But back to the teenage stuff with Fire. Not only is there the thrill of going to the Quidditch World Cup and he gets taken with the Weasleys and you think, oh, that's really fun. But there's all the other things like micro celebrities within a school. So everybody starts to idolize Crumb. And then you have like the Queen Bee, Fleur Delacour.
Yeah.
And there's all those like teenage instincts of they're all too nervous to speak to her, or people want Crumb's autograph, and you think, oh God, this is so on the money. This is so correct. And that sense of school pride when there's a competition and you want to win, and everybody gets into the Triwizard Tournament in exactly the sort of way that students would. It feels so relevant to that teenage experience that it is so exciting to read. It's such an exciting book.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, as we're talking about teenagers growing up, it is really the start of all of the romance plots. This is where it begins. The kids are basically 14. And yeah, they start having crushes and having to ask people to the ball. The ball is like one of those central moments where they all have to work out who they're all going to take, and everyone gets jealous of each other and asks the wrong person. And it's all a complete disaster. It's so classic.
It's so classic and it's so well done, and it's centered around exactly the events that it would be, which is like a school dance or a school disco or a school ball in this case, or like prom. And you're absolutely right. It allows all of those embarrassing conversations to be had. I love the discussion of when it said that Ron just shouted it at Fleur. Do you remember he asked her? He sort of yelled at her. And Harry has to ask Cho. This is the proper introduction of Cho. What do you think of their pairing and their romance?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're nice. And I think at the time, we didn't know where Harry's romantic life was going to go, but this feels like one of those like early crushes and romances that is not going to last forever. She's not going to be like the love of his life forever, but it's true that you just get fixated on someone and you're obsessed with that person and nothing else kind of really matters. And it doesn't matter if you're suited to each other in any particular way. It's just that you really like that person and you can't stop thinking about them. And I think that's what's going on there.
Yeah, and that's described so accurately, as in well, it's not in first person, but it is focalized through Harry, and you sense that it's at that level. This is not a super deep relationship. Like, it's much more believable in the books later on when Harry is drawn to Ginny, and you think, yes, this is somebody he has spent time with, like a considerable amount of time with. This is someone he shares actual interests with, and they have. Like, I'm so much more a fan of the book relationship with Ginny than I am of Cho, but we're supposed to feel that the Cho relationship is surface.
Yeah, but those things are totally real when you're that age, right?
Yeah.
You just completely get obsessed with someone. There's no particular like logic to it. It's just a feeling and an obsession, or a fluttering in your stomach, and you can't deal with it in any other way other than to like hope that it's going to go somewhere or try and make it go somewhere. And that's just so real.
Yeah. The issue I take with this book in retrospect, we spoke last episode about like flaws in the world building or things that on reflection are a bit nonsensical, is I can't believe these schools held a tournament that involves the death of their best students a lot of the time.
Well, yes.
And also that nobody thinks that they can undo the fact that Harry's name has been put in the Goblet of Fire. Like, you think there would be a school policy being like, he's too young, it's cool, we'll change it. Whereas everyone's like, no.
It's some kind of magical bind or something. Yeah, I guess you're meant to just, it's one of those things you are meant to just hand wave away as like, well, magic places are weird and life and death is, taken a bit more flippantly. And I guess that it's because the tournament's meant to be like ancient as well, right? It's not only a magical tournament, it's something that's been happening for like centuries, and therefore like maybe fighting to the death 500 years ago or 1,000 years ago was more of a accepted thing to happen. But yeah, I mean, Hogwarts's problem with death of students is generally true in all of the books too.
That's right. And he is the second champion for Hogwarts, isn't he? Because Cedric is chosen.
Yes.
Hogwarts ends up with 2 and everybody else just has 1. That's the erroneous aspect, isn't it? That Harry is sort of an extra.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And everyone's like, this is unfair. There's now two Hogwarts students, so they've got like double the chance of winning. But also like, he's a child, he's like underage, he's not meant to be doing this at all.
Well, that's the other slightly exciting aspect for it when you are the reading age of Harry, which we've been saying previously, we were chronologically, which is that like he gets to do something that's ostensibly like for the sixth form. Like this was for the older years. There was an age limit and he's like snuck in.
Yeah, which is always cool. And also interesting that a lot of the crushes and relationships are on older students. So like they're in what we would call like year 10, year 10, I guess. Yeah. But they're having crushes on people who are in like year 12 and 13, which is like, I don't know whether we even like considered those people like real humans at that age.
It's so true. It's so true. That's right. Cho is the older woman.
Yeah.
She's a bit older, whereas obviously Ginny is the year below Harry and Ron.
Yes. Yeah. Because she joins in Chamber of Secrets.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. And this is really the start, isn't it, of the Ron Hermione tension.
Yeah. Yeah. Suddenly Ron feels all like weird and jealous about the fact that Hermione's going to the ball with Victor Crumb and like freaks out when he sees her like looking pretty in a dress. And it's like, oh, actually, maybe she's not just my nerdy friend.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant book trope, though, that's operating there, which is that, of course, this is the Hermione glow up book.
Yeah.
And I remember the book version of it so vividly. They changed a lot of the styling and the description when they were doing this for Emma Watson in the movie, but she's described as wearing like it's like blue robes in the books, and she does something to like fix her teeth and her hair. Now they the impact is so lost in the films because it's almost as if they've given Hermione that glow up from like book two because of the way
Yeah.
because
I
the way
mean,
they
Emma Watson's just always pretty. She's never not going to be pretty. So even if you make her hair frizzy, it doesn't mean her face is not pretty anymore.
they don't even make her hair frizzy. Like from Prisoner of Azkaban, she's just like they've used like a hair wand on her. She's just got like hair crimping. So
Yeah.
so all that happens in Goblet of Fire is that she appears wearing a slightly different dress. Whereas in the book version, the reader really thinks, oh, this is really different. This is now a bit of a game changer. This is really changing things. But yeah, the effect is lost slightly in the movies.
Should we talk about the end of this book before we move on to kind of the wait between books 4 and 5? The
Yes.
end of this book is really, it's the beginning, it's the middle point of the whole series. It's like the turning point, which is really interesting. It's basically halfway through the chronology of the series, especially in terms of length of book. And it is the moment when Voldemort truly returns. Um, and yeah, I do see it as like the end of this book is the switch from the naivety of pre-Voldemort to the seriousness of, okay, he's returned. This is now a war.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it means we now have Voldemort in physical form, so he can do things like he's given proper dialogue. He can engage in wand duels, which is basically the first thing that happens in the
Yeah.
graveyard. He can start killing people. The other first thing that happens, he kills Cedric. But
Is
yeah,
Cedric
right.
our first death that's like a current death of a character that we care about?
Yes. The fact that I would struggle to remember anyone before that suggests he's the first significant death.
Yeah, which again I think is showing a turning of the tides and of
But
the level of threat.
yes, but and we'll compare this to the significant death in oh my god, what is it called? Order of the Phoenix in a minute. Because while Cedric's death is sad, he's really only introduced as a kind of minor character in this book. And
Yeah.
he's not someone that Harry deeply cares about or that we, the reader, deeply care about. So he's a significant death in the fact that he was a character that like significant paragraphs were allocated to. He's given more of a full kind of character sketch than anybody else, but it's very different from when we lose Sirius.
Yeah, for sure. All right, shall we talk about the gap between the two books and maybe the start of the films coming out?
Yeah, I had forgotten this Sirius gap, but you reminded me of it before we started recording this.
Yeah, up until this point, the books have come out once a year in the summer, in July, basically. And at this point, we've gotten four, this massive book, and then Order of the Phoenix takes 3 more years to come out. That is crazy. I don't know how we coped. I think I coped by spending a lot of time on the MuggleNet forums online discussing theories. And like there was a lot of online forums going on. And we also coped by the start of the films coming out the year after Goblet of Fire.
Yeah, I don't think I even had a computer at that point. So MuggleNet was like completely lost to me.
There was two. There was Mogulnet and there was another one, and I don't remember what the other one was, but I spent a lot of time on those forums. They had like, basically a wiki explaining all the characters, and then you had like forums where it was just random people on the internet just, yeah, chatting away on message boards.
Do we want to go straight into Order of the Phoenix and then talk about the films, or shall we briefly think about what it was like when Philosopher's Stone came out in the cinema before we
Let,
go on to Order of the Phoenix?
let's do a little interlude on the films and then come back to Order of the Phoenix.
Do you remember going to see that first film?
Oh yeah, for sure. It was Christmas, right? It must have been a
It was.
winter.
It
Yeah, that's
was.
probably why they feel Christmassy is because they were designed to be Christmas movies.
It was the best Christmas ever. It was Philosopher's Stone and Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
was insane.
yeah. What a good year.
I mean, like, what's happened to the world? Like, why don't we get that again? We all went to see it in Leicester Square and dressed up, and it was wild. I think we went opening day. It was absolutely packed. It was the thing of the year. And I remember thinking it was just perfect. The film was perfect. It was an almost page for page, beautiful, beautiful adaptation. I love that film.
Yeah, the first one is really nice, isn't it? And it does really capture that feeling that we were talking about last time of those early books. It doesn't try and do anything different or clever. It just tells you the story, and you're in the magical world.
That's it. It really tries to be what I would call quite a faithful adaptation, tonally, and everything works. The John Williams soundtrack.
Mm.
The first two are by the same director, and it's really only when we get to Prisoner of Azkaban and the whole cinematography changes. It's got a different director, and I start to be like, oh, wait, I'm finding this hard to adjust to. But those first two films to me are just complete perfection.
And those are the two that came out in that 3 year gap. So yeah, they really filled our cup that was needing filling of missing Harry Potterness. And I think I guess the biggest impact of those movies was on the three child stars and just them blowing up into being, even right from the beginning, they were made into these huge, huge, huge celebrities, stars, child actors. And yeah, they've never really lost that, even when they've done more or less acting since. They are just Harry, Ron, and Hermione.
Yeah. And the early films are so fantastic for them because in the early films, the actors are really acting more, it's more of a caricature performance. So Hermione is doing her like, oh, what? Excel. And Ron is a combination of sort of a more slapstick performance. And like you said, you find him to be a bit more dumbed down in the films.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's more.
but that works. It works for the movies, I think.
It
Um,
does.
and I
Where
think
they
the other
struggle is the later films because they have to do things that are genuinely more complex emotional scenes. And I think they've cast people who fundamentally had basically no acting experience. So
yeah,
they're asked to mature as actors very quickly. And it's sometimes in the later films where you think, oh, that's not great, but we'll overlook it.
yeah. The other thing that they did exceptionally well, obviously, was the stellar British casting of the adult characters. I mean, Harry Potter had just clearly gotten big enough that they were able to get the best of the best of like British royalty in acting world. And yeah, nothing can be said that about all of the main character actors in that movie.
Outstanding casting, no notes in those early films. I have some casting qualms with the later movies, but we'll come on to that with Order of the Phoenix. So
All
we do
right,
Order of the Phoenix.
let's talk about it. How did you feel after 3 years of waiting when you got to read? What were we delivered in The Order of the Phoenix?
Okay, so Order of the Phoenix is my favorite book, hands down.
Ah,
That one is mine. Um, Goblet of Fire is actually my favorite film, which I guess we can kind of track back to in a minute. But Order of the Phoenix was my favorite book. I think some things I liked about Order of the Phoenix just didn't work on film as well as you said, the brilliant tight structure of Goblet of Fire, which managed to make a really, really great film. But it was also the first time when I just wasn't ready to activate my like no spoilers rule. So my primary school friend, April Williams, shout out, had texted me on probably the first mobile phone that I ever owned. It was like a Nokia 3210 on the day it came out, just being like, Sirius dies.
Oh no,
And I
that
remember
is the
thinking,
worst.
what? What?
Oh my gosh.
It meant when it got to book 6, I went into like seclusion, like
Yes,
no one
yes.
talked to me. So I didn't know that Dumbledore died, but I did know that Sirius died.
Oh my God, I can't imagine. I
It was
think I
annoying.
probably just read really quickly. So I avoided spoilers by reading really, really fast.
Do things like if there's something we don't want spoiled, it's like, okay, don't look at social media for the day. Like just basically just like don't activate your phone. And so literally this knowledge got to me through probably the like only communicative medium apart from like my like landline house phone that it could have got to me on, but it did because in the teenage brain, this was like the biggest bit of breaking news, like for the last half decade, that Sirius
But
dies.
did she feel bad about it, or did she not like have a concept of spoilers back then?
Yeah, I don't remember because I don't think we spoke for like the next week because we were both like someone must have spoiled it for her because it was like on the day. I don't think anyone
Wow.
read it yet. But I remember loving it. Didn't ruin it for me, like the impact of that death that we'll get to was still um meaningful enough that it didn't matter that I knew it was coming. Uh,
Mm.
but everything else about the book and the way that it got there was so good that I didn't care.
Okay, so what is it about Order of the Phoenix that makes it your favorite?
Okay. So now we've got like just the very fact that we've got an order. Now we've got like a secret society going on. We've got
Ah, that's your thing, the secret society.
this is my thing. So you had the like structure of all the different challenges and the stuff within the Triwizard Tournament. Whereas now I'm like, we've effectively got like a clubhouse. They've got
Yeah.
headquarters and it's secret. And best of all, Sirius is in charge. And it's his. I was like, right, this is good stuff. And so you get that aspect of like the teenagers get to be part of the secret order or not. There's all that tension about they're not allowed in secret meetings and they're aware that the adults are doing cool stuff. But it's Sirius who goes, like, Harry's allowed to listen into this stuff. And I think, great, that means we're allowed in. So I loved the aspect of the like, yeah, the secret resistance. I thought that was just brilliant. Um, and what else do I love about Order of the Phoenix? Some of the set pieces I found so exciting, like when they fly to Gringotts.
Mm.
Um, but it's all of that is much more difficult to capture on film and starts to look a little silly. Um, but the depth of the book and the aspects of the secret keeping and of being able to shuttle back and forth to the headquarters, I just loved. I just thought it was perfection. This is the book that I love the most. But yeah, a film that does very little for me, actually. I don't love the movie.
Yeah, I think it 5, 6, and 7 are almost quite similar in that they become a much more like free-form narrative story and are less centered around like the school year and specific events happening throughout the school year and more about the much bigger picture of what's going on in the world. And as you say, like more adults taking a bigger role. And so I think, yeah, actually 5, although 4 and 5 are kind of in our middle section, I think 5 tends to get closer in style to 6 and 7.
Oh, and of course, sorry, the other reason I love 5 is we get the most iconic villain and my favorite, I was going to say subplot, but it's really the central plot. Like,
Mm.
I hate Voldemort. Everybody hates Voldemort. He is evil incarnate. But the thing that felt the truest to me and like the most relatable struggle is Harry and his friends versus Professor Umbridge.
Yes. Umbridge is a classic villain.
Umbridge is such a classic villain. And to have this, like the evil teacher who's on a power trip, who then gets the backing of the Ministry of Magic, who then becomes the head teacher. And things start to happen that are like nightmarish within the structure that we're used to in Harry Potter, which is that, yeah, Dumbledore is evicted. Like Dumbledore is kicked out of his position as headmaster. Um,
Yeah.
And that is such a classy moment. Do you remember when he evades capture?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
They come to get him, and he's like, if you think I'm going to go, what do you say, quietly? You're wrong. It's so good.
But again, it's like this huge threat, and yet it feels so real because we all know those kinds of teachers and those kinds of like power trip type people. I mean, we should definitely tell the story of our own sixth form, where we had basically spent the whole of our senior school being perfectly happy and like we're very obedient and hardworking, well-meaning students the whole time. But also we had like a school that was quite like practical and like, you know, we had rules, but we knew that they were rules that were important, not just like stupid rules for the sake of it. And we felt like, yeah, it was a pretty nice environment in general. And then in our sixth form, this new headmistress came in and she just suddenly decided that we were going to turn into a school that had like really, really strict rules about like uniform and which side of the corridor you had to walk on.
Oh,
And
I
like
forgot
all
that
of these
one.
things. There was like so many, and it was a shift in tone. And as I think even we might have been even year 13, we were at the last year of school. We just had no interest in suddenly a whole load of stupid rules that meant nothing to us and clearly were not going to like make a difference to our academics, which we were already good at, came in, and it really felt like Umbridge. And we, in fact, on our last day, which was this like muck up day, created posters with her face on it, with like Professor Umbridge brings in like these new rules. It was like posters of all the new decrees that our real head teacher had brought in over the year, and like associating her with being like Umbridge. And I can't believe we did that. Like, it was great.
I can, because that's the other example of this being another fantastically relatable thing to teenagers. Nobody likes regime change. And the regime that you're embedded in as a teenager is your school regime, because that's
Yeah.
just where you are. It's like how people don't like when a new CEO comes in, or people don't like when they've got a new boss and the tone of the company changes. This is it at a school level. It happened to us and we freaking hated it. You're right. We were like, why is there now a rule about walking on the left up the stairs? Why are there all these nasty little fluorescent arrows that have appeared? Why do we have this draconian regime where we're now measuring skirt length with like a tape measure? Why have religious hymns been reintroduced in school? I remember you, Maddie, like going on a like campaign of silence and refusing to sing. Do you
Which is
remember?
hilarious now because like I sing in churches all the time. I'm not religious, but I sing in choirs.
But you were like, I will make a stand.
Yeah.
This is my stand. This is my protest action. And Umbridge feels like that. And you get that sense of student protest, of I love that Fred and George set off all the fireworks.
Oh, yes. Yeah. That felt like muck up day, didn't it?
Yeah, but it also goes to a place of violence and evil, which is why this is such a sophisticated fantasy book, because it's one thing to have a teacher whose rules you disagree with. It's another thing where she starts to use the pen when they have detention and they have to do lines that
Yeah,
cross
physical punishment. Yeah.
physical punishment. It was, and actually, this started to feel a bit more Roald Dahl or a bit more. This got really dark very quickly, this book.
Yeah. And it also tied into what I was saying earlier about the fifth book becoming political, because Umbridge was essentially a part of what was going on at the Ministry of Magic, which was this denial that Voldemort was back at the top level of government. Dumbledore was the only senior person in the wizarding world who was like outwardly saying and agreeing with Harry that Voldemort was back. And the Ministry of Umbridge had basically been sent by the ministry. So this was not just a school level situation. This was like a governmental level corruption and situation, which is what everyone was trying to fight against.
This book, I think, is probably the most relevant of the Harry Potters, like today in 2025, because this is about government control over the press. It's about the concept of fake news. It's about repressing a narrative that is based in fact just through absolutely maniacal denial.
Yeah.
And when I read it now, I'm like, wow, this is so prophetic. This is so scary. And that J.K. Rowling managed to kind of predict that sort of world, but it feels infuriating to the reader. You're like, what is that? That's not being.
Yeah, and she's able to predict it precisely because this is the like cyclical way that history goes.
Mm,
And these kinds of like maniacal controlling governments have been seen in history throughout time. We happen to be seeing it in our time, but it's, when she was writing it, she would have been looking back at, there's lots of analogies to World War II in this book. And yeah, it's just a cyclical thing that happens in history.
yeah, it's the demise of Fudge, isn't it? This is the last book
Yeah.
that he's the Minister for Magic before we get on to Scrimgeour. And
And
it's
he
really,
was a weak leader. This power of the government was able to come in because Fudge was such a weak, like, minister for magic. It was not because he was maniacal and evil himself. It was because he was weak that this evil was able to seep into the government.
yeah, that's right. People like Umbridge are really riding roughshod over Fudge. Fudge is just a bit of a chocolate spoon. He's useless, isn't he? He doesn't want to believe that he who must not be named is back because it would make his life harder. So
Yeah.
he just likes to think, no, no, that's not. And there's the ongoing scapegoating of Harry and the increasing scapegoating of Dumbledore, which
Yeah.
is a bit of a shift because before it was as if the wizarding world were in agreement that Dumbledore is this sort of paragon who's not to be questioned, and he, like, yeah, it's as if his position was firmly secure in the earlier books. When the Ministry now start to turn on Dumbledore, you really feel as a reader like no one is safe,
Yeah.
and it's the
Yeah.
start of that. Now, can we talk about Sirius?
Yes, of course.
Oh, Sirius, the first hot book character in this series. Why did he have to die? Why? Why? And Sirius is described in these terms and then woefully miscast as Gary Oldman in the movies, where the adjective old is in his very name.
Mm. But all of the adults in Harry Potter are cast too old. All of the marauders are put to be about like 30 or 40 years older than the kids, and they're only meant to be 19, 20 years older.
That's right, because in the history of Harry Potter, the parent generation have all reproduced frighteningly young.
Yes, well, particularly James and Lily had their kids right out of school.
That's it. They've finished school and off, and then suddenly they're having some babies. But in all the flashback sequences, which I have so much time for, to James and Sirius and everybody as kids, Sirius is described as the like dark, dangerous, good-looking one, and then same again in adulthood. And Gary Oldman just like looks really like he's on a kind of malnutrition plan. He just looks a bit homeless. And you think this is not the vibe. You're supposed to be like really cool. And that just did not translate in the film for me. But it was such a joy in Order of the Phoenix to see Harry have somebody that he thinks is cool, who is his preferred adult. Like, his relationship with Dumbledore has always been so one-sided. He's always trying to get Dumbledore to tell him the truth, to answer his questions. And Dumbledore is constantly evasive, hard to get hold of. If you don't go up into his little office, you can't really have a conversation with him. And Sirius was like somebody who Harry could have the equivalent of a phone call with by sticking his head in the fire. I liked it.
Do you think you started at this point to relate more to that generation, like the middle adult generation, to Sirius and Lupin and Tonks and like James and those people? Like, do you think this was the point at which, like, if you were finding Sirius hot, was that because you were seeing yourself not as the teenage characters anymore, but more as like looking up to the older characters?
No, they were still very much the like grown-ups in the books.
Yeah.
But I think this is the same year that like Aragorn had appeared. So
Yeah.
it was suddenly like, okay, to think, oh, wow, hi.
Yeah, which is interesting because I think I was probably still too young in my brain because I never, I think we talked about this in Lord of the Rings. I never liked Aragorn until like, now I'm grown up. I always just didn't really fancy anyone in Lord of the Rings. And I think probably also Sirius Black would have fallen into that category where I was still in just like a young teenage brain. So like adults just didn't, I wasn't there yet. It took me until Jack Sparrow, I think.
Oh, that's right. And we've talked about that in detail. No,
Yeah.
Aragorn and Sirius Black were very much the same time frame. They
Yeah.
were actually very, very different as heroes, although actually very similar. And so when Sirius dies, I remember thinking this was just a tragedy on all fronts. Like, I thought you've just killed off one of the best characters. But let's be honest, what was Cedric bringing, like, to the books? I mean, not a lot. Not a lot. You don't miss Cedric. But Sirius was actively a driving force behind why Order of the Phoenix is so good. Like some of his dialogue is the best. He's such an energizing presence. And losing him just tips Harry over into this awful grief in book 6 that felt very hard when we will talk about those another time.
Yeah, and it does feel like Harry's never allowed to have anyone. Like he doesn't really have anyone. It's even the one person he gets is ripped away.
Like, okay, foreshadowing our discussion when we get to book 7, but when they kill Hedwig, I was like, that's it, I'm done, I'm out.
It's like, not even his pet.
Why can't Harry have someone? Why? It was very, very upsetting. But yeah, it was awful to lose Sirius. Well, what did you think of that? You didn't know it was going to happen.
No, I didn't. I didn't know. I don't know if I remember my immediate reaction, but I do remember that whole end sequence being quite spooky. Like when they go into the Department of Mysteries and the like veils and everything. It's like there's a lot of stuff that's introduced like really quickly near the end that is like a lot more unknown stuff. Like we don't really understand how any of that works. The prophecies are weird, and the veil is never clear what that actually is. I mean, even now, I don't think they really ever explain what it is. I remember that end sequence being both exciting, but also, yeah, just asking a load more questions and not making anything clearer.
Yeah, it's the introduction of something I really love, which is I love that we start to introduce a prophecy thread to Harry Potter properly. And I loved how cleverly plotted that was with it all links back to Professor Trelawney, doesn't it? Turns out
Yeah.
she made the prophecy.
Yeah.
And her role is sort of legitimized. Like everyone thought divination was bullshit. And it sort of turns out that Professor Trelawney actually made a prophecy.
Yeah, I actually like her as a character. Yeah, it's a kind of a fun storyline.
Me too. And Emma Thompson is so good in the movies as her. So that's brilliant. But you're right. The thing where Sirius falls behind the veil, I thought he was going to come back, first of all. I was like, wait,
it wasn't clear what's happened. Yeah.
No, it wasn't clear. And now I'm not sure in retrospect whether that was an artistic decision from J.K. Rowling to not have it be so traumatic to her child audience of like, what are we going to do? Are we going to have a corpse? Like, are they going to have to bury Sirius? Is he horribly mauled? Like, I mean,
or maybe she wanted to leave it open for him to potentially come back in the later books and she hadn't decided. Who knows?
Maybe she did, but you're right. It was a strange, like, conceptual decision to have him fall behind that weird veil and sort of be gone. I didn't understand. It felt, do you know what it felt like in retrospect? It felt a little bit like how, when people sort of somehow die on Buffy, but they actually go into like a hell dimension.
Yes.
They go into a different dimension and then they're brought back. I was like,
it does feel a bit like that.
Sirius is going to reappear in book 7, having been like behind the veil in some hell dimension, and then he comes back. But
yeah,
he never did. Maybe that's a lost opportunity.
Yeah. I guess the other thing that's interesting about this book and the end of this book is that even though at the end of the 4th book, Voldemort has come back, he has physical form, we see him, Harry speaks to him, he kills someone, we just don't see him in the 5th book. He's just not there. The threat is, as we've talked about, the government threat, Umbridge threat, and the Death Eaters. We know that the Death Eaters are growing in power and force and number, but the fight at the end is not with Voldemort. It's just with the Death Eaters. And so that's really interesting. I think that's probably not something we would have expected when we were like set up by book 4 for Voldemort to be back. And then suddenly the whole of the 5th book is just about, is he even back? I don't know. It's super interesting. But it leaves enough time then for Voldemort to be more, important in 6 and 7.
I love that. You're right. It makes him more of a sort of shadow operator, whereas it meant that brought to the front were people like Bellatrix Lestrange. I loved the increased prominence and like villainy of Lucius Malfoy, who you just knew was a badster all along. But it's one thing being like a nasty parent and like mean to Dobby to being a Death Eater.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And that again is one of those things where it's like, as a teenager, you knew this person was bad, and this has like proved it.
Yep, absolutely. So all of those things, it feels really gratifying to read this book. And it's the last one that feels, I used this term before, but it still feels like a big romp. It still feels like a big adventure. Whereas when we get into 6 and 7, there's another tonal shift, and you start to think, oof, this is hard now. This is some hard reading. This is starting to get really dark and a bit depressing. So 4 and 5 are still relatively lively books, I found. What did you think of the film adaptations for 4 and 5?
I think I love number 4. I mean, again, the music and the casting in number 4 is great. I love all of the stuff with the different schools and the ball and the tournament. It works really, really well on film. The end, with Voldemort coming back on film, is amazing. Like, probably better than I could have imagined it. Like, so good. But the 5th film, honestly, I don't really remember it very well. I think I've probably watched it way fewer times. And so I'm probably like you in the 5th one probably didn't quite work for me.
It really suffers from 2 terrible casting decisions, because it's the start of 2, or it's the book about 2 critical relationships for Harry. And if you kind of misfire on those relationships, the film feels really hollow. So one is, Gary Oldman doesn't work for me as Sirius. And the other is, God bless her, and I can't remember her name, but whoever they cast as Ginny Weasley was just like a person.
I know people don't like her, but I don't know. I think it might be the writing rather than her as an actress. I don't know. I think
But you've got to admit, nice. They have zero chemistry. It's not interesting to watch.
Yeah. Bonnie Wright, that's her name. Yeah, it's interesting because I guess she was probably cast just for how she looked back in book 1 and on film 1. And they could have taken the chance to recast her. But I do actually wonder whether it's partly a fault of the writing and that they just didn't give her interesting things to do or say. It wasn't even that she did it badly. It's just she didn't have anything to do.
And like a heads up to the producers, like I would love to know the sort of behind the scenes conversations that were had here, because you're spot on. She would have been cast at a point when all she really had to do was look like she was part of the Weasley family, and it might have seemed like she was just a secondary character. And if anything, the reader sort of thinks we're done with her after book 2. Like, she has that key role in book 2, and then that could have been it. She could have been just as important as someone like Percy Weasley, for example. But no, you're suddenly presented with the fact that she is going to be Harry's like major love interest. But you've just gone ahead and cast, like, I don't know, somebody called Bonnie Wright.
Yeah, they did recast some of the smaller characters, so maybe that should have been the decision.
Yeah.
We should talk about, though, the best casting in Order of the Phoenix, though, which was Evanna Lynch as Luna Lovegood, who is amazing and is probably like the most fun part of that movie and the only thing that I do really remember and love. And she was brilliant. She was just excellent.
She works as a character and is interesting as a character in a way that in Goblet of Fire, Rita Skeeter really isn't. Like, she's probably the worst subplot of Goblet of Fire. You think like, okay, clever, we're entering into a kind of thematic detour about celebrity and press, and the kind of pitfalls of being hounded as a celebrity.
but I don't care about her. Whereas you're right, Luna, you think, oh, I like you. You're more.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Luna became one of those like fan favorite characters, both from the book and the movie. And yeah, to have only been introduced in the fifth book, that's quite an achievement. So yeah, shout out to Luna.
And to circle back to Lizo from Newsround, that is where we met Lizo from Newsround when we were
Yes,
to be Luna.
We both went along to the cattle call auditions for Luna Lovegood. Of course we did. We were the exact right age at the exact right time. Both thought we were mini and little actresses, and we thought this was our shot to like become famous. But I think we just walked in the room and got immediately told to leave. We just like picked out 2 people out of 50 and then we left.
We were just not suitable for that role at all. But both me and you just thought, on the one hand, we'll shoot our shot. And on the other, we were like, we just have to be a part of this. Like, this is in London. People are queuing up. This is a part of, I think we just went along to like spend the day in our small way connected to this franchise.
For sure. And like, why not? It was definitely worth it, even if we knew that it was not going to come to anything. There was that teeny tiny chance, that like minuscule possibility. And so why not?
We tried. And as we look ahead to 6 and 7, do you agree with me that 5 is the end of another, that we're coming up to another tonal shift?
Definitely. I think 5 probably starts that shift for me. There's kind of a split again between 4 and 5. But yeah, 6 and 7 are very clearly the end, the grown-up books. And it will be really good to talk about those 2 together next time.
It's going to feel less Christmassy and we're going to end up recording it really close to Christmas, but that's fine. Then we can review the whole Harry Potter saga and bring out all the nostalgia, just to help offset some of the darker themes of 6 and 7. And until then, see you soon, Maddie.
See you then.
You've been listening to the Fangirl Diaries. Follow us on Instagram at Fangirl Diaries Pod.
And do share us with any of your friends that you think might enjoy the podcast, and rate or review us on Spotify or Apple Music.